Hello and welcome back to Hyperplay RPG. We've done 5 amazing SNES ROM hacks, and now we're doing 5 amazing PS1 ROM hacks, going up through the generations of consoles. So without further ado, let's begin. And in number 5 spot we have Racing Lagoon, the 1999 high-speed driving RPG. Good old Grandpa says Final Fantasy meets Gran Turismo. We'd also say Final Fantasy meets Gran Turismo meets Fast and the Furious meets Taxi Driver, and you'll see what we mean as we get into it. There is no denying that this is a beautiful game. Square had, by this time, achieved total mastery over the PS1 hardware, and it shows. Now this is also something of a benefit, but also a minor curse to the game, because the cinematics and the character models, although slightly ridiculous in places, are beautiful, and the recreation of Yokohama, downtown Yokohama, is absolutely spot on. We were there in 1998, and the game was made around then, obviously released in 1999, and the fidelity of location is absolutely brilliant, as are the driving mechanics. Punishingly so, as we'll also see. You may quite reasonably think that this RPG has very little to do with Square's other Lagoon RPG, Bahamut Lagoon, but they actually share a director. Hitoshi Sasaki was the chief designer of Bahamut Lagoons. Possibly one of the most beautiful games on the PlayStation 1, Racing Lagoon wears its 1999 lineage proudly on its sleeve. Just check out these Matrix-style intros. Undeniably superb style on show here, but how is the gameplay? Well, to be frank, it'll take you a while to get there, because Square know they're onto a good thing, and these cinematics of Yokohama are stunning. And you'll also get long cutscenes with character interaction, with lots of dudes talking whack about cars, which is fine so far as it goes, although we found it does slightly drag on. In the meantime, you can enjoy these ridiculously beefy character models, and you can tell that this was released around the time of Square's other lesser-known game, The Bouncer, which Sasaki was also involved with. But finally, we get down to the driving in our shiny white motor. Sho Akazaki is ready for prologue night. Crimson Moon. And saddle up, because we're going to show you how it goes on our RG40 XXV. Now, we are not petrol heads. We've dabbled in racing games over the years, but you need to be an expert driver if you want to succeed at Racing Lagoon without any easy mods. Unfortunately, there is an easy mod. You can download an easy mode file, essentially a save file, which has the best specs for your car. And we would highly recommend that to anyone who is not absolutely expert at Gran Turismo, for instance, or Ridge Racer. So we're in our white motor here, and there's a lot of drift going on, so you've got to be a little bit careful. We're using the fabled analog stick that snaps to 8 cardinal directions on the RG40 XXV, and I don't think we're doing too badly here. You get onto the straight though, and you just cannot close anyone down. Bear in mind, this is the first race before you can level up your car. So you would think, once you add more parts to your car, that you can then make it faster and it'll be easier. But not a bit of it, and that's another reason why we recommend the easy mode save file with the strongest parts and best parts for your car. So here we go, we're supposed to be catching up with the dude in orange, but he is absolutely miles ahead and there's no chance. Yes, we touched the sides. If you touch the sides of the barriers, you will slow down a lot and basically lose sight of the other cars, and no matter how good you're driving thereafter, you won't be able to get it back. In fact, so tricky is this first race to even keep tabs with the guy in 6th that we soon get lapped. By the end of it, you'll see us getting lapped by our target. Right on cue, there he goes. But don't worry, it's not game over. If you do lose a race, you still pick up some experience points and so on, and you'll be able to carry on regardless. So that's a taste of the first race, but what of the rest of the game? Well, there's going to be a lot of philosophizing by the lead character, who you play as Sho Akazaki, and that's why we compared the game a little bit to Taxi Driver, because there's a lot of inner monologue presented on screen as you cruise around the dark streets of Yokohama looking for your next race. Here, for example, he's having a brain shunter about an inscrutable din, and talking of inscrutable, wait until you see the levelling up system, which comes in the form of garages that you drive around to and can park in, and then choose which parts you want to buy and level up. The designers even recognise that your standard RPG fan might be at a bit of a loss here, because they even reference Final Fantasy and Saga Frontier when comparing the chassis to the agility parameter in those RPGs. That said, with the best will in the world, the tutorials here are not great in terms of telling you what the different parts for your car will do. It is not as simple as just putting in the latest and greatest items. We did that, fully equipped our car with what we thought and what it said would be more powerful items, and when we came to our next race, well, we'll let the pictures do the talking. Races happen in two different ways. There are the story races, like the first one you saw, or warrior unknown races, where as you're cruising around the street someone will challenge you to a race, and they're quite exciting, although it can take quite a while to find someone to race against. And this is one such battle against a warrior unknown in our new motor, which had the turning circle of a Sherman tank. So we absolutely piled into the barrier there, but using all our crafty know-how got back in front of our rival, who then nudged us. He obviously didn't like our take and piled us into the next barrier from which we couldn't recover. So we were back on the road again, pootling around. And what you can do is you can go and park up at the various locations. And you might think something really exciting will happen here. You come to a cosmic big wheel, for instance. So once you've parked up, you go in there and you're treated to an admittedly glorious cutscene with a gorgeous gal who the story's been nudging you to find. And at the end of it, nothing happens. You're back on the road again. So again, another way in which the comparison to Taxi Driver plays out, because you will be pootling around in the dark quiet of Yokohama quite a lot, unless you do the sensible thing and use an online guide, of course. You can visit different locations like Chinatown, very colourful, very beautiful, and you can find out about chain smokers and weary bankers and dingy taxis, and have chats with various other young people who think that sleep is for the weak. Those conversations don't really tend to go anywhere, so unless you're keen on visual novels, we suggest using a guide. Definitely get that save file with all the best equipment loaded onto your car, unless you're a complete petrolhead, and then play the game how you like it, which in our case would be loads of fun battles, a little bit of exploration, and progressing the intriguing story. Absolutely fantastic that Racing Lagoon has been fan translated into English, and if you have any interest in cars as well as JRPGs, then Racing Lagoon is definitely worth playing. It's PS1 polygon perfection. Our next amazing PS1 ROM hack is none other than Final Fantasy Tactics: The Lion War. Over the years, a thriving modding community has built up around Final Fantasy Tactics, particularly the PS1 version, and this may well be the finest mod of them all, although stay tuned for another entry later perhaps. And this is Final Fantasy Tactics: The Lion War, which brings in the best bits of the PSP War of the Lions version and brings them into the PlayStation 1 title. For instance, you can add a movie aspect to the Lion War mod, whereby you get this beautiful hand-drawn animation at the start of the game to replace the more blocky effort from the original PS1 title. And yeah, this is absolutely sublime animation. The movie mod does purport to bring in all the other movies from the PSP version, but we could only get this one at the start to work. But no matter, because the later movies replace on-screen, in-sprite cutscenes, which actually we prefer, because when you're in the meat of the game, if you're anything like us, we didn't really want to be taken out of the moment. We're quite happy to see cutscenes done with the in-game sprites, because that's what we grew up with things like Final Fantasy VI. But nice to have this movie at the start with the chocobos racing to Orbon Monastery. And here's an example of how the cutscenes were handled in the original Final Fantasy Tactics, which also appears in our Lion War mod, because as I say, couldn't get all the movies working, but very happy to see a cutscene like this still remaining in the game. So what other changes have been imported from the PSP version? Well, the biggest and most exciting is not only an improvement for the PS1 version, but it's actually an improvement over the PSP, and that is the rendezvous battles. Now, the rendezvous battles in the War of the Lions PSP version could only be played in co-op, with 2 players having 2 PSPs, PSP each, and 2 copies of the game. Obviously, that wasn't very workable at the time. It's even less so now. So, joyously, the modders have brought the rendezvous battles into Final Fantasy Tactics The Lion War on PS1, and you can find them under the Brave Story section and then go into bonus content, and this is all on the main map menu. And then you'll be able to play the rendezvous battles as a single player. Absolutely brilliant. One note of caution is that you can lose units permanently, and you can lose equipment permanently when playing these rendezvous versions, so we would recommend saving regularly. Presumably you'll be playing this on an emulator, given it is a hack, so use those lovely save states and you'll have an absolutely brilliant time on these challenging rendezvous battles that you can now play in single player. Another wonderful addition to this version, Final Fantasy Tactics The Lion War mod, is that Ashley Riot from Vagrant Story can be recruited into your party, which is a superb addition and makes perfect sense given that FFT is set in the world of Ivalice, as is Vagrant Story, of which Ashley Riot is the main character, and also, of course, Final Fantasy XII is also set in Ivalice. So Ashley Riot is a very welcome addition to the game and fits in seamlessly. A welcome quality of life improvement is that units can now be benched, which frees up space and means you don't have to carry lots of unwanted monsters around with you. So really, this is the best of all worlds. Final Fantasy Tactics The Lion War ROM hack on PS1 is without question the best way to play Final Fantasy Tactics now. You can get it on your PS1, you can emulate it, you can use those save states easily, get the movies, get the rendezvous battles in single player, co-opt Ashley Riot, and just have a fantastic time while maintaining all the best bits about the PS1 version. Final Fantasy Tactics The Lion War is the most user-friendly strategy RPG made even more fun, and we highly, highly recommend it. Okay, coming in at number 3 for our third amazing PS1 ROM hack is something rather different. It's a 1992 PC, or DOS game if you prefer, Wizardry 7, Crusaders of the Dark Savant. I mean, this is amazing on a number of levels. It's amazing that it was ported to the PlayStation 1 in Japan at all, and it's even more amazing that someone has gone and translated it so that we can play it in English. To say the game shows its age is putting it rather nicely. It is incredibly tough and a little bit rough, but what we will say is that it does have an absolutely gorgeous opening movie, which is a theme of every single one of these ROM hacks now I come to think about it. But just to emphasise how quirky this title is, to get to that movie, you need to start a new game. But can you select new game? Can you... like up and down on the D-pad. New character, add character, and then system. You cannot get to new game. So, alright, we have to go to add character, and you can go and create your character, which is a bit of fun, and improve their various parameters and choose what kind of mage or thief they're going to be and so on. In classic CRPG style, you also choose their race, human, dwarf, elf, raw wolf, whatever. But quite frankly, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, an F lot of good it's going to do you, because this game is punishingly tough, as we'll see in a bit. So once you've sorted out your team and you have created your characters, you then need to add them onto your roster. You're then greeted with this extraordinary opening movie spouting some guff about grand adventure, and then this curious fellow who bangs on about... Yep, that's right, the Cosmic Forge. What a MacGuffin. Suffice it to say, I have absolutely no idea what's going on here, but you're soon sent into space and off to this other planet to be dropped into a jungle maze where werewolves will destroy you in an instant, if, like us, you have no idea what you're doing. As a historical artifact, this game is absolutely astonishing. And for a 1992 DOS game or a 1995 PlayStation game, which is when it came out in Japan, it actually holds up pretty well. The graphics are pretty good, there's that fun opening movie, and the PlayStation version has many superior quality of life differences compared to the PC port, such as better graphics, new music, faster character creation, a convenient auto-mapping feature. Conversations with NPCs are much easier in the PlayStation version of Wizardry 7. Gone is the need to type in your questions with a keyboard, and now you can choose from a range of sensible questions, which always elicit an interesting and often useful response. There's even an automatic menu that pops up in the PlayStation version that allows you to pick locks and bust open treasure chests to your heart's content. So if you fancy a classic CRPG, but with some great quality of life PlayStation improvements, look no further than Wizardry 7 Crusaders of the Dark Savant on PlayStation 1. Just watch out for those werewolves. Alright, real chat now, top 2, and here we have it, by far and away the best ROM hacks on PlayStation 1, so far as JRPGs go anyway. And we have Xenogears Perfect Works Build. Now that is quite the title for a ROM hack to have, and it does purport to be the perfect version of Xenogears. There is another reason this ROM hack is called Perfect Works, of course, Perfect Works Build, Perfect Works being the quintessential making of book for Xenogears, which was created around the time of the game's release. A huge 306-page tome packed full of information about not just one game, but the 6 games, of which Xenogears was going to be Episode 5. But we digress. Xenogears Perfect Works Build is an improvement hack, but what an improvement hack. You've got plenty of quality of life improvements, which we'll get into in a minute. You've got subtitled cutscenes as well with the Japanese original voices. They've redone the script, which was pretty impressively translated, to be honest, given the themes involved in Xenogears by Richard Honeywood, the main translator. But in terms of actually putting that on the screen, there were plenty of errors, grammatical and otherwise. And here you can see the changes that you can patch onto your Xenogears.bin ISO. It has to be a .bin. We'll provide all the links in the description below with regards to how to get hold of the patcher and so on. And you can choose half encounters, so you can whiz through your game, and 1.5 experience, which is useful, especially if you're only doing half the battles, and you can get 1.5 times the experience and gold. They've changed the portraits, they've improved some of the graphical bugs. There's plenty of rebalancing that's gone on with regard to items and battles. You can make it harder if you want to. Really impressive effort by the team. What it doesn't do is it doesn't flesh out Disc 2. Now, there was another team of fan hackers which were looking at rebuilding completely from the ground up Disc 2, so that it was actually properly playable rather than visual novel style, which is a problem that some people found with the original Xenogears. So Disc 2 remains intact, but you'll be able to whiz through it quicker along with the rest of the game and enjoy more challenging battles like this one on screen. So this is a very early battle just outside Faye, the lead character's village of Lagoon, I think it's called, and he's fighting in the foothills and already having a tough time of it, just up against these pesky chicken types, and the wolf already, they've knocked him down, and you have to then go back into your save states and change your strategy. So do bear in mind, if you are rebalancing the fights to make them harder, they will be much harder. But again, that's an option that you can just leave off when you come to patch your Xenogears bin ISO. Xenogears Perfect Works build remains a work in progress. We're up to 0.5.2 in terms of versions, and changes are ongoing, so there may be some bugs and glitches. Also, a couple of players have complained that they went too far with the name changes with regard to the characters in them, the mythology and the lore. Bear in mind that Xenogears delves deep into Jungian psychiatry and Gnosticism and so on. And here we have Perfect Works. Probably the best book ever written about a video game, and you can play Spot the Difference here. There's the Japanese version on the left, and what's that on the right? A hardback English version, and we can't say too much about that, but the hardback English version is a thing of beauty. The book perhaps mentioned earlier, which this hack is. If you want to know more about it, what I suggest you do is go into our videos and scroll all the way down to one of our first videos from about 2 years ago, and the truly dedicated treasure hunters amongst you will work out how to get hold of a copy if you want one. Anyway, back to Xenogears, the game. A game that absolutely demands to be played for its story alone. It is one of the finest in science fiction, full stop, on any media, and we highly recommend it. And we would now say that Perfect Works Build, Xenogears Perfect Works Build, the new ROM hack, is the best way to play it. Absolutely phenomenal, and highly recommended. Xenogears Perfect Works Build breathes new life into a game that we dedicated 16 pages on in our issue 3, which will come up for a reprint fairly soon, along with all our other past issues of Hyperplay RPG, so please stay tuned to our channel if you're interested in getting hold of our printed fanzine of yesteryear. They're great, Xenogears is great, and Xenogears Perfect Works Build is almost perfect. And speaking of almost perfect, we have #1 spot on our list of amazing PS1 RPGs, Final Fantasy VI Tactics version 1.2 beta. Now, if you're anything like us, back in 1995 you thought this was the most beautiful thing ever. It never came to pass. But you would happily have settled for this as well. Final Fantasy on the N64. Of course, this also never came to pass. However, what our 15-year-old self didn't know back in 1995 was that in the future our dreams could kind of come true, and there could be a marriage between Final Fantasy VI and the PlayStation, and we could have our beloved Final Fantasy VI sprites gloriously rendered in CG, or at least with polygons. And now, thanks to the miracle of modding, our dreams have kind of come true, because the fan community has provided Final Fantasy VI Tactics. Now, this isn't finished yet, but it is wonderful. You start out in Nash, in the gloriously snowy environment of Nash, with Mog, Terra and Locke on one side, fighting off a band of enemies. And it's all built into the Final Fantasy Tactics engine, and it's all glorious. Now this is, in its current state, a battle rush game. That is to say, you only get the battles from Final Fantasy VI put into the Final Fantasy Tactics engine. There are no story beats in between, no cutscenes. You get a bit of dialogue between the characters at the start of each battle and at the end, but there's nothing bridging the gap. There's no exploration whatsoever. So you do need to know the story of Final Fantasy VI to enjoy this mod in its current state. But the battles are fantastic, very easy to pick up and play, and the characters, the portraits, the sprite work, the abilities, they're all absolutely superbly done, and we cannot recommend this mod of Final Fantasy VI Tactics highly enough, even in its current state. And the battles do go all the way up to Ultima Weapon on the floating continent, so there is stacks to enjoy. What I would say, and if you haven't played Final Fantasy Tactics before, is make sure that you equip the spoils of war before each battle. So after each battle, congratulations, you've won, you get bonus items, and it's very important then to save, equip those items onto your party, otherwise you will fail in the next battle, like we did against Vargas on Mount Kultz. If you want to know more about Final Fantasy VI Tactics, we did a long play review video, about 40 minutes worth, which is on our channel, so do have a look at that if you like. The footage does get better after the first 5 minutes, so if you want to skip in a bit, do feel free to check that out and enjoy our witty commentary. But what a golden age we live in. Just cannot believe that there are all these amazing games to play, and then all these amazing old games to revisit, with improvement hacks, translations. We truly do live in a golden age of gaming, and I'm sure you agree. Especially if you've made it into the 25th minute of this video. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on this journey through 5 amazing PS1 RPGs. Hope you're doing well, take care, and hope to see you next time. All the best. Goodbye.